Today's video is about loft and toss bombing. We'll look at the differences between loft and toss bombing and how we achieve that using DCS Harrier. We join iPilot as he coasts in towards the IP. Looking closer in the HUD, we can see that the TD box is marked on the river feature as it enters onto the coastline, and we can also see it on the DMT. What this has done for us is it's verified the navigation equipment position. This means that the subsequent waypoint, the position will be marked correctly in our head-up display, which is what we will use for our aiming. Why do we need to do this? Well, we need to avoid collateral damage. We aren't going to get eyes on the target before we loft the bomb. So let's take a closer look at that concept. We can see our navigational features here. If we look first, then at the TD box, as we saw it over the inlet, we know then that the target will be marked correctly as the subsequent waypoint. If we didn't find the TD box marked exactly over the inlet, we know that the target position will be offset, and it may be unacceptable for us to loft a bomb on that point. DCS does not give us enough information on the Harrier navigational systems and any form of offset bombing available with the Harrier. Most navigation equipment will need to be updated or maintain an accuracy and integrity check before looking at a sight unseen target. Unfortunately, with DCS Harrier, we can't slave the targeting pod, so in this instance, I was using the DMT. So now we know the navigation position is correct and the target position is correct, we can run towards it. The thing behind a loft and a toss bomb is essentially we are staying outside the weapon engagement envelope and essentially standing off, sometimes a little bit closer, but standing off from the weapon impact point. That might either be because of ground defences or bomb frag envelope. The CEP, the circular error of probability, is quite large, although it's small enough to hit area targets. Originally designed way back in the day for the loft bombing and toss bombing of nuclear weapons, where the CEP is not so critical. The escape manoeuvre performed after the release of the weapon normally involves a 90 to 120 degree offset from the original inbound track. By way of example, on our map here we can also see a few different options for IPs. The spur on the lake is readily identifiable, as is the base of the mast. Having verified that the navigation equipment integrity is good, we know that the IP was in the correct place, and therefore we can assume that the target is in the correct place, assuming we have correct waypoints for both. We will ingress at low level. And pointing towards the target at low level, we're watching the countdown towards the target. Ideally, at the sort of speed you can achieve in a Harrier, you're looking to be lofting the bomb at around 2.5 miles. When that happens, when we get to the ideal parameters, we pull up, commit the attack by pressing the pickle button, and there you can see that the range marker comes down through the flight path vector, thus indicating release of the weapons. We recover the aircraft by turning away from the threats and away from the target, back into low level in this instance, quick look over the shoulder because we always do, and then onwards to continue with our route. All weather fighters will do that manoeuvre IMC or at night, and that is when you need to go head down for the recovery. The laddering I spoke about in the HUD is all the attitudes changing rapidly, and you will not know which way is up. Aircraft have been lost in those scenarios. Okay, so now we're looking at toss. We can see we're heading towards target 4. We've just offset by about 30 to 45 degrees. And we're paralleling, pulling up, and pitching in towards the target. The principle remains the same. We're going to be releasing the weapon with our finger pressed or our thumb pressed on the pickle button, and when the range to the target equals the range of the weapon, it will come off, but we'll assist by pulling as you see here. If you have time, you can hackle the target mark onto the actual target, otherwise you can offset your flight path vector and the bomb fall line such that it does flow through the target that you are aiming to hit. And again, we egress at low level, avoiding the threat. So now let's look at it from the real Harrier, viewing the head-up display at Decimamanu range in Sardinia.
Switch aside. Switch aside.
So in summary, loft and toss bombing is about avoiding the threat. Loft bombing generally is to avoid the surface-to-air threat, and dive toss bombing is to get closer to the target but avoid blowing yourself up with your own weapon. Just to finish off, here's some gratuitous shots. £1,000 bombs going off on Garvey Island dropped from tornadoes. Thank you.